Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I have another fabulous guest with me today. I have Rosa Kelly with me, who is an intimacy and relationship coach, and you are not going to want to miss this episode. We are diving into a whole pile of goodies. But first and foremost, the main thing that we're going to dive into is perimenopause and great sex. And before you turn this off, because you're like, perimenopause, I'm not in perimenopause. I actually want to just go, wait a minute. If you're coming into your 35s and ups, or you're already in your 35 to 40, or if you're in your 40 to 50, that is when it starts. And mine started actually 36 years of age is when I started perimenopause and my hormones started dwindling. So you are in the right place if you're anywhere around that age, because it is about 10 years before 10 plus years before we hit menopause, but lots of little crazy things, if I'm going to be honest, start to hit us very quickly in these years. So we're going to dive into all of those and spill the beans. But welcome first, Rosa. So good to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have this chat. So let's start with you. Who are you? Who is Rosa? What do you do? How did you get into this work as an intimacy and relationship coach? Yeah, share, and we'll go into the perimenopause story as well as let's dive into all of it. But whatever you want to start sharing, go for it, please.
Perfect. Well, I'm Rosa. I'm from Amsterdam. I live in Amsterdam, but I have clients all over. I have been married for almost 20 years with a fabulous Irish guy.
Mm.
We have a daughter called Zita. And how did I started my career as a lawyer, as a corporate tax lawyer.
Ah.
Ah, yes, so funny. And then at one point I got sick. I got cancer. And I had a
Mm.
whole year in hospital and treatment. And in a way, obviously, it was really tough. But I also had a lot of time to think, okay, so from here, what do I want to do with my life? And
Mm.
I decided to just make a real 180 turn and study sexuality because I've always been, first of all, I it was an extreme struggle for me to be embodied and to
Mhm.
be safe in my body and to have be connected to my own pleasure for years. And in a way I thought, why is the place where we should experience so much pleasure so hard to get to that pleasure?
Oh,
And yeah,
yes.
so there I was. So I did Layla and a whole somatic experiencing, a whole lot of courses, and now I work with women and couples around sexuality mainly.
I love it. That's what I love to do too with sexuality. Women and couples is pretty well the same thing. I will work with men singly on their own, but women's and couples just feels so juicy. Either you work with them on their own or you work with them as a couple. And yes, I love that. Why is the place that can give us so much pleasure the most taboo and the hardest to get to? And why don't we
Yep.
talk about it? And why don't we embrace
Yay.
it? And all of that. And thank you about sharing your journey with cancer because as you were sharing, it's very common, you were saying.
Well, it's very common to struggle with sexuality after cancer. I'd say they say
Mm.
about 60 to 80 people, 80% of people that have had cancer treatment struggle with sexuality afterwards, which is
Mhm.
insane if you think about that, how many people that is,
Yeah.
considering how many people are affected by cancer. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a huge topic and again, something that's not really been talked about.
I love that you're bringing that up. And I'm curious, how does it affect a lot of people, especially women, after having cancer? What ways? Can you go into a little bit more of that, of what's common?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think there's the trauma of operations and treatment, body
Hmm.
image, and for me, it was really like at 12 days into my treatment, I hit menopause, like
Hmm.
bang, just like that. So I had hot flushes and as extreme dry vagina, and all the kind of like classical menopause symptoms. They were there, and they never went.
Hmm.
Like they thought there was a chance that it would go away and that my body would just kind of pick it up again. It never did. So I think so like hormonal factors and also like just to relate to your body, that's like for me, my body felt really broken for a very long time.
Hmm.
And to send like to be loving to that body and to find pleasure in that body was really very hard for me.
Mm, and thank you for sharing that it is possible because that, and it is possible, by the way, if you're listening. We already know that. That's what
Yes.
we're going to go into. Because I've heard this with a few other women. A few other even Vita coaches, sex, love, relationship coaches who, again, they had a abrupt landing right into perimenopause and then officially menopause. Pardon me. And I wanted to speak to that to help people understand, if you're not sure and you haven't really looked this up because you thought menopause was somewhere in your 50s or 60s, that menopause itself is actually just like the flag in the sand of 1 year mark of no period. It's just one day, 12 months later, you're menopause. And after that is called postmenopause, which we don't call it that. We call it menopause generally, but it's actually postmenopause. And before that, which I was sharing in the beginning, that 10 to 14 years before the 12 months of no period is perimenopause. And many women are struggling. And you apparently were probably playing with the perimenopause right before the cancer treatment. But I also have heard that the cancer treatments itself can just like bump you right in to
Yeah, it
that.
was the cancer treatment itself that bumped me right in. Yeah,
Ugh, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
tricky, right? So yeah, we're gonna dive in and explore that. And I just want people to hear that if you're in your late 30s, you're probably in perimenopause. Like it starts, it's not like an overnight thing. It's a very slow dwindling thing if it's happening naturally, unless it's medically induced, in which way then it is a really abrupt fast. I've been playing with the very slow. So we're going to compare both, I guess, on this call and podcast recording, which is great. So 49 now and literally might be there. Don't know if I'm in menopause or have hit menopause yet. A few times now I've gone through 5 months of nothing and I'm in another one right now. So I'll let you know in 9 months if I'm, or I guess 8 months, 7 months. I'm doing my math here. I'll let you know in 7 months if I'm in menopause yet. But
Okay.
we are struggling with the same things where there's decreased libido, you're not feeling sexy, emotional as fuck. Like I can cry every day right now. And if you aren't comfortable with allowing your emotions to flow on a regular basis, which I was not, I learned how to in my 40s through the work that I've done, similar to Rosa. If you're not comfortable with allowing those emotions to flow, they can be built up and stuck and be really, really hard to deal with. And so, yeah, now, it comes, I have an emotion come up. I'm not shaming myself for having it. It's like, okay, I'm having an emotion right now. And yes, it's grief. Feel it, allow it, let it pass. It kind of ebbs and flows. But there's so much to be said um, with these hormones. They can, the nights, sleeping through the nights can be really tricky when you're waking you up all the time. There's a ton of different solutions. My naturopath has been incredible at helping me navigate the side effects of perimenopause, which is interesting. What other ones have you noticed?
Well, like my symptoms.
Yeah, let's name them.
Yeah.
There's so
Yes,
many, so let's name them.
night sweats. But to be fair, I have there's one thing I'm doing, and I think it's keeping almost all my symptoms very much at bay. And I've been a qigong teacher for 12 years, and my
Ah,
qigong has been an incredible lifesaver throughout this. Oh, because I love it from a Taoist perspective.
yep,
The Yeah, it's called the second spring. Like I think in
yeah.
Western worlds, the menopause has such a bad rep, but they just
It's
say, "Listen,
not.
this is great." Well, and also that their whole view is all that chi, all that life force energy that's leaking out by bleeding every month, and also by
hmm
taking care of everybody. This energy is all for you in this phase of life. So it's actually a really empowering phase. And
I love
I
you
love that
mentioned.
view. And also, to be fair, I think my libido, that is supposed to really suffer in menopause. I think for some women it really does, but I think it's not a loss of libido. It's more that sex becomes
Yes,
awkward. Like becomes painful. Sex becomes like your pleasure path might be harder to navigate, but it's not really, there's nothing wrong with you. Like that you can have great sex. And I think it's a real big misconception that yeah, we are getting older, we're drying up, literally, and that's
doesn't
our
have to be
sexy gone.
true either.
No, no, not at
Not
all.
true. We
No,
we are not
not
drying
true.
up. It is a myth, though. It's a huge myth that women actually are living their lives thinking that that's why they're so afraid of menopause, right? They're thinking when they get to menopause or perimenopause, their life's over. Like throw in
Yeah,
the towel. That is it. And that is not true.
nope.
I know myself and many others, I'm pretty well assuming Rosa as well, who are juicier and wetter in perimenopause and menopause than they ever have been in their life. And that is not because of the menopause or lack of, it's actually, I think, because of the lack of turn on in their life, not turn on, sexual turn on, but juiciness, fun, aliveness. It means healing your trauma. It means really looking at where you have been traumatized, whether it's really bad, could be like surgery, right? You were talking about surgery from cancer, but it also could be from giving birth. It can be from a bad pap smear. It can be thinking that you are shameful and dirty and there's something wrong with you sexually, right? There's so many crazy, and hey, we all have them out there, beliefs and conditions from teenagers to childhood to early, all the way through around sexuality in our body. And when we're not like whole and comfortable and truly love who we are inside and out, I think it shows up the most in perimenopause, the most. And
Yeah.
you mentioned boundaries as well. It's the time
Yeah.
where if we haven't done our work and people are stomping on our boundaries left, right, and center, we get grumpy as fuck. Like, right? And that grumpy as fuck isn't doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That is actually your body going, you aren't doing something right for me. I need more. I need you to create boundaries around you to keep me safe. So it's like our
Yeah.
body is giving us these messages of not that we're broken, of areas where we need to work on to reclaim.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah,
Really.
that
Yeah.
yeah, it lands for
It's
you.
Yeah, 100%. Like it makes so much sense. And like, so I would love to, if people are listening, and I would love, if nothing else, I would love them to take away that this can be a great period. Like it's such an
Yeah,
invitation to be empowered and to stand in your,
yeah,
also your sexual power, like, yeah. So maybe sex was okay so far, but not great. Well, make it great. It might be like harder to get to a point where you're super wet or super torn on. Well, okay, make that happen then, like in a way, that's the invitation. Uh,
yeah.
get more pleasure in. Yeah.
And I think that one's so important because so many women and men, honestly, don't know what pleasure really is. They think it's the peak orgasm. If we just like, penis and vagina, assuming, and go, 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 eventually there might be an orgasm, there might not be, but like that's peak pleasure. And what I want you to all to hear is actually no. As example, you may have heard me share this before, you may have not if you're new. I can have 20, 30 plus orgasms before we ever hit penetration. It is all in allowing your chi, like in the Taoist tradition, right? Playing with Taoist and tantric traditions to allow your body to feel. But I think for me, especially, and for many of my clients, we have become so numb in the society. We're very numb. We're very disconnected from our body. We're disconnected from our pleasure. So when you go in and heal this numbness and start to just simply learn how to follow your pleasure, which is what Rosa and I do with our clients, something comes alive. And hey, there's no shame if this is where you're at. This is where I was at for years. It was like maybe I'd have an orgasm, maybe I wouldn't. Had to be a certain way, generally had to involve alcohol, had to be things to kind of numb me out a little bit more and get me out of my head. But what is possible is actually learning how to feel. I'm playing with my hand here for those who are just listening and not watching, but like learning how to just feel delicious pleasure. But in the beginning, you might not feel any of this. You might not be able to even feel somebody touch your arms or your face or your neck. I couldn't in the beginning. How was that for you in the beginning before you explored your pleasure pathways,
Well,
literally?
yeah, yeah, no, it was literally the same. Like the thing is, I always thought I was very present because I was
Mhm.
fantasizing, and I was like, "And look, I'm having an orgasm." Yes, I had an orgasm because I was always fantasizing. But in a way that is like you could not get it more disembodied as that, Like obviously when you're in your head thinking about something else, you're not present in your body and you're not present with the sensations. And for me, that was really a big journey. And still, like I have a very active mind. My mind goes off if I allow it. It's gone, and that's
Yep.
okay. I know now. I use my breath. I use movement. And sometimes
Sound. Yeah.
and sometimes and sometimes my husband is like, "I think you're not there anymore." I'm like, "True," and we just laugh about it, and I'm back. It's how I'm wired, and I think also like I think this is obviously true for a lot of women. oftentimes we have a lot more of the like without wanting to stereotype or generalize too much, but I think a lot of women have a lot of mental load, and I think
Hmm.
that makes it very hard to be, whenever we're in the bedroom, we have playtime, to be really present with our bodies. And I think to normalize that as well, okay, yeah, sometimes it's really, really damn hard to get there, to be present in this
Yeah.
body, to be present with pleasure or whatever sensation is there, because it's not, sometimes for me, it takes forever to be like to perceive pleasure. Like I can perceive the touch. I can be happy to be there with my husband, but it's not per se very pleasurable or very arousing for a long time because it takes sometimes a long time. And I think this is true for a lot of menopausal women. It sometimes takes a long time to get to that place of turn on. That's okay. You
And
know,
that's because of the
let's take
mental
that time.
load. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take
Yes.
that time. Yes. And I would say that this is what, if anybody's listening, they're like, one key takeaway is like menopause and perimenopause does not mean your pleasure dwindles and your orgasms go away. Yes, they can, but it is not because of the perimenopause and the menopause. It is because of the inner critic. It is because of the numbing out. It is because of the disconnection from our bodies. And because we are not holding boundaries in many places in our lives, we're not giving ultimate epic self-care because we are taught actually to martyr ourselves. So, we're martyring and martyring and we're not actually giving to ourselves. So of course we can't slow down later in life when things get a little slower. We're meant to be, like you said, come in, take care of ourselves, slow down, do yoga, do the qigong, do something to ground. It could be sacred sexuality practices, could be breath work, somatic work, embodiment work. Slow down. This is the time to slow down and come inwards. But I think many women are getting faster and faster and faster in this time. And that is why your pleasure is dwindling. That is
Yeah.
why you're not feeling connected and embodied. It is not the menopause.
Exactly. No, and also I think when we're talking boundaries, I think a lot like women are like at a certain age, I was like, I'm not putting up with bad sex. Like most of my clients, women, female clients, it's not that they don't want to have sex, they just don't want to have the sex that's on the menu. That's an entirely different thing. And I think
Yes.
with menopause, we're like, well, I'm really not going to put up with this. And I think that's fairly healthy. Why not
Mhm.
prioritize our own pleasure? And I think also that is so maybe that's also part of the menopause. That's maybe we're just less inclined to put up with bad sex. And
And we're less
yeah.
inclined to put up with bad anything at this age, let's be honest.
Yep.
And
Yes.
that is when our menopause and perimenopause can become very hard because our hormones, our estrogen and everything else is dwindling, which means all of a sudden we're like, we're not putting up with this shit. And we realize it. And it's part of the hormone cycle. It's like it was described to me, actually, it was Kelly Gillis way back when, who's also a Vita coach, who described when you're 10, 11, before your period kind of thing, we're like, we know what we want, we know what we don't. We say no to that friend, we say yes to this friend. We know where we're at. And then we get these hormones when we get our first period, and we're meant to have them. We're meant to have them all the way through while raising children and doing what we're going to do. Because let's be honest, if we didn't have these lovey dovey, taking care, nurturing hormones, we would kill our children. We would literally, like, they'd be like, get out of here. Like, they're so, we need that hormone. So as we start to lose that hormone again later in life, we are, again, not putting up with shit. And we're coming back to our preteen, all over the place. I'm making like, ups and downs like a roller coaster, because that's what we do every month, right? We go up and down like a roller coaster when we're getting a full period. And then all of a sudden that disappears. And so we're not getting the up and down. And if anything, I love 5 months in here. And I'm like, second, third round of 5 months in, I'm like, I feel more balanced and more grounded and more calm than I ever did having every 4-week cycle. That actually is the roller coaster.
100%. Yes,
Yes.
100%. It's true.
Right.
It's true. Yeah, and also it's that self-knowledge that's kind of that like, well, you know what? Yeah, here I am. Take it or leave it. There's something
Hmm.
very, very nice about that. It's a bit
Hmm.
frightening probably, but
It can be
it's
frightening if you haven't done work to actually believe and feel your worthiness to hold boundaries, done your work to feel worthiness to take time for yourself. if you haven't felt worthiness of deserving space. And what we're kind of getting at here is all of your years leading up to your 30s and 40s and 50s as you're going into that, it's kind of like they catch up to you if you haven't
Yeah.
done your work when your hormones start dwindling.
Yeah.
So
It's so
there's a
true.
connection in timing, but it's not actually linked.
Yeah.
And now let's go into how do we have the most epic, juicy, turned on sexual experiences and honestly, pleasure in your day to day. It doesn't have to be in the bedroom. I love my day to day right now. I love my life. I create the life that I want. And this is something also talking about needs and desires of women, if they don't know what they want, and I like to say this, how you're showing up in the bedroom is how you're showing up in your life. So if you're not creating boundaries, or if you're not speaking your truth, or if you're not asking for what you need, you're most likely not doing it in your day to day. And that's the tricky part. But let's start explaining, this is some of leading into it. How do we reclaim our most sexy, juicy time in these later years? What would be your suggestion? I'm just call this later years, our middle years. Who am I kidding? Middle
Yes.
years.
Well, I can only say how I do it, like how I do it, and also in a way, obviously, how I recommend my clients. But I will start with myself. I
Yeah.
start to every day. I do this little pleasure practices. Like really, like for example, just in the shower, I really, like rub like nice soap on my breast and nothing. It's not sexual as such. It's more sensual, and it's the touch. It's a loving touch.
Mhm.
I meditate daily. I do qigong daily, and for me, qigong is it can be very orgasmic without actually like it's much more an energetic orgasmic, but I feel so lit and so alive when I do qigong. And again, I do more and more with my clients. I do qigong practices
Yeah.
and let them incorporate little bits of it. um but I think it really for also stuff that you just did, for example, the self touch. It could be your hand, it could be your your head. Really, it
Hey.
again, face, your lips, like,
Mm.
just, it can be so sensual, like, to touch yourself like that and to start to reconnect with that, because in a way, that's what you're doing. You're reconnecting to pleasure, but by, like, making it safe. And also, like, if it's hard for you to get there, that's okay. Start small. Start with your hands. Start with, like, just your fingers like this is plenty. It's really not so much I think about what you do, but just step by step owning that you are made for pleasure. We have this every part of our body can be erogenous or
Mhm.
our energy body, so it's really to start like basically setting the intention. Okay, I want to experience pleasure again in my life. Okay, let's start there,
Let's
let's
find it.
start there. Yeah, exactly, what is that for you? And I think it's really individual, but I think reconnecting to the body is key.
Absolutely. Reconnecting to the body is key. I'm gonna give my story in a minute, but I wanted to ask a question and explain something too. So, and I kind of want to understand a little bit more. My partner and I are actually being certified. We're almost done in holistic Qigong massage, which is a full body de-armoring massage. And it is beautiful. Like we're actually offering Shakti Shiva with masculine and feminine at the same time, on one on each, the feminine, me, on the masculine side of the body, and the masculine on the feminine side of the body, which is brilliant. And I love it. But what is your Qigong? What are you talking about?
Yeah, my qigong is much more a very traditional form of movement. It's more like tai chi. It's a medical qigong
Okay.
that I learned from Minke de Vos. I did a 5-week
Mhm.
course with her, and then I'm doing a 3-year course with one of her teachers. And it's
Brilliant.
called shamanic Taoist shamanic Chinese medicine. So it's a
Love it.
very it's really intense. It's 3 years, and I'm doing it. I'm busy with it every day for at least an hour. Entails a lot of qigong, but it really, the whole idea is, for example, when we look at the body and the kidneys, that if they are depleted, you would have no energy, but you would have no libido either. So for
Mhm.
women that feel very sexually depleted or feel that their I want to have sex is very far away, I start to work with their kidneys and give them practices
Mm.
to strengthen their own kidneys. So it will be easier
Brilliant.
for them to recognize even when they feel turn on so yeah, my qigong it's a medical qigong.
Beautiful. And yeah, that's something to name that you reminded me here of. Our ovaries typically are making our hormones, right? And that's what's giving us our sex drive, our libido, and all of that. But what happens as we lose our estrogen and the hormones start dwindling, we turn to our adrenals to make our turn on and libido hormones. And our adrenals are also what handle our stress level. That's what allows us to keep going and going and going. And like the Energizer Bunny, eventually, if you're too stressed and you're into perimenopause where your ovaries are not making your hormones anymore and we're turning to the adrenals are going to go for one thing, which is keeping you alive, survival, stress. It's not going to allow you to have those turn on and sexual hormones. So this is why your qigong also is beautiful at bringing in, something like qigong or meditation and breath work to slow down, yoga
Yeah.
to slow down, to nurture your body, to honor your body so that you have lower stress levels so you can make your turn on hormones out of your adrenals again.
Exactly. Activate the parasympathetic, basically.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing with with qigong, with yoga, with anything, anything that slows you down.
Yeah.
Would be that would be the aim. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
And I'll go back to my journey now of what have I done to become juicier and more alive and turned on and up to 30 plus. I can't even count now. Way back when, sure, I was lucky to have an orgasm or two, right? Maybe two on my own, one lucky with a partner kind of thing. But what happened is I went on my journey. I hit a rock bottom of like something's got to give here. I'm not happy. There has to be more than this to life. I didn't feel pleasure. I was numb. I was disconnected. I was people pleasing. I wasn't holding boundaries because you can't hold boundaries and people please at the same time. It's a really tricky one. Um, so much doubt, inner critic going at me all day long, thinking I wasn't doing it right. There's so much in there, which led to ultimate low level of like depression, kind of like functioning depression, but very, it doesn't feel good. So my journey of how I came back into my body was I started doing, of course, some of the work around what is pleasure, what is turn on, where are my conditioned thoughts and patterns around what does it mean to be a woman, what does it mean to be a mom, what does it mean to be a wife, looking at sexuality and body and what do I think about my body. Like I hated my body most of my life. Like as soon as I learned probably around 12, 13, that that's what we're supposed to do. I really, really disliked my body for most of my life. It was never good enough. Whether I was a size 6, size 14, didn't matter. The only time I liked my body was pregnant, actually. There was a time pregnant, I liked my body. But again, there was fear of what's going to happen afterwards, too, right? There's so much going on there. So I started to do the deconditioning work. I started to come into my body. I started to use movement. I started to use breath, sound, whether it's a meditation or sacred sexuality practice. Started to really look at what my trauma was as well, because that plays a very big key part of what our sexual story is, which is what we take our clients through as well. What is the story that we have been carrying around our body, around pussy, around our breasts, around what it means to be a woman, mom, wife, sexual being? There's so much trauma and shame built in a lot to our sexuality. So we started to kind of take that apart, and everybody has their own different story. And that's the beautiful part. We're not pushing, you know, everything we do onto somebody. We're giving you the tools to find out your own truth within yourself. And one of the biggest parts that helped me learn how to really come into my body and trust was some of the inner child work, really, the turn on work, the playing. There's so many tools and techniques. We couldn't even cover these all right now. There's so many of them, but even just starting to feel, like you said, starting in the shower with starting to feel breath, starting to feel belly. Find 3 things that you love about your body every day. Start to have a dance break every day and just be like, close doors, nobody watching, and dance like nobody's watching, like sing like nobody's watching. Start to be you. And what happens is with all of this work, we start to, we've got the body work, we've got the head work, we're working, subconsciously too. We're doing all of these pieces. But what happens is, for me especially, is you start to come home into your body. You start to learn how to trust yourself and you start to create this epic safety within your body, which is actually your pelvic bowl. So your womb space, the same space that we're referring to right now, which is a woman's power center. And you start to create this trust and safety within yourself. And from there, you start to ask for what you want. You start to create boundaries. You can trust. Do I need to set a boundary here or is this fine? Did this feel good or did this feel wrong? Um, do I want to wear that out tonight or do I want to wear that? Should I dress, conservatively or do I want to dress what makes me feel sexy? Like there's all of these different thoughts and things that play in there. But we start to learn how to trust ourselves. And from there, we can trust ourselves with relationships, trust ourselves with businesses, trust ourselves with bigger things, because there's this inner truth and there's this inner wisdom that lives within our pelvic bowl that, again, we have disconnected from because of society, because of so much other things in life. And this is a time to come into our truth, come into our body, come home in our body, feel safe, feel nurturing, and be this literally wise woman, this wise
Yes.
body that can be this GPS and telling us what's next. So it's really hard to put 8 years of a journey into a couple of minutes to describe what it is, but it's a process of bringing in somatics, body, pleasure, deconditioning, trauma work, working with the inner child, and it all just comes
Play.
together. Play, oh my gosh, play. Yeah, you have to have the nervous system regulation work. So that's another key part that we teach and I really focus on because I don't think you can get to these heights and these levels of feeling sexually confident, turned on, and alive without holding our nervous system that has been told, so many other stories over the years. So there's nervous system work, there's pleasure work, and then there's sacred sexuality work, and we get to play with it all. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Brilliant. No, totally. And I completely echo that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
What else do you want women to know about rediscovering their sexuality in this phase of life? Because many women haven't. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the perimenopause, the menopause, but many women haven't.
I would say what I think is really important that we feel that we have choice when it comes to taking hormones or not. It's
Mm,
such an individual choice, and I think everybody should really make that up for themselves, whether or not their inner wisdom tells them to do or do not take that. And again, I sometimes feel that it's a taboo thing, either interestingly enough, whether you do or don't, you're damned.
mm,
And I think
mm,
everybody should really make that up for themselves. It's an
mhm,
individual choice. I know that there's a lot of people say that you could be 100% fine without it. And I only take it like I take a little bit in my like suppository, I think that's called,
mhm.
estrogen, a very low dose, because whatever I did, I got so dry that I just kind of decided, okay, well, if this is what it takes, this is what my body needs, I'm going to give this to my body, and that
Yeah.
is much more loving than to be very dogmatic and say, oh no, I'm not going to do this. So I think again, connect to your own inner wisdom and be okay with that. um
Yeah, and more
so
the reason to connect to your own inner wisdom, because if you can't decide because you're going off of your head decision, what the doctor or what the other doctor or what your partner or your friends are saying,
Your
you're
friends
not
or yeah,
trusting you. You literally need to come inwards and check with your body. And we don't know how to do
exactly.
that before we learn how to. And we have not been taught to. This is part of the work that we do of really learning what does your body need and checking in and
Yeah,
asking.
100%. And I think the same applies to like the moment, like when you are entering menopause or perimenopause, it might take you a lot longer to be ready, for example, to be penetrated. And
Mhm.
again, check in with your body. Your body
Yep.
knows. Your
Yep.
body really knows when it's ready.
And let's be honest, most people think it's, we're ready to be penetrated when we're ready to be penetrated, or actually women are generally penetrated just because their partner decided to penetrate them, not because they
Yes.
were ready for it. And
Yeah.
typically, it does take 30 to 40 minutes for a woman to turn on. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be in the bedroom the whole time. Like the turn on can start in the kitchen, it can start in the living room, it can start in the shower. It's a warm up. But it's not that you need more time now in perimenopause or menopause to be penetrated. We actually always did. We just didn't know it. Um,
Exactly. Yeah, we just
and
got
that can
wet a lot
cause,
quicker.
right?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
thought that was ready to be penetrated, but technically, A woman's body is actually not ready to be penetrated until she opens completely and actually starts pulling in. Then a woman is ready to be penetrated. And that goes for all ages. We just don't know it.
No, and I love this term for that, like the premature penetration, because I
Mhm.
think all of us suffer from that. It's just
Mhm.
we're getting penetrated when we're not ready. And again, it's not what our body wants. If you listen to her, to your pussy, she's not ready. So she knows.
Mhm.
And I think again, you connect to your inner wisdom for that. You connect to your inner wisdom and you listen. You start to listen to your body. And I think
Yeah.
it's more important in menopause because it's less easy. It's just in a
Yes.
way, because you
It's like,
don't get wet as quick, and you will be like, I remember at the start I was like, what's happening? I feel turned on, but I'm not getting wet. Like
mhm,
I thought it was really distressing, and I felt a lot of shame around it.
but it's not
Because
true.
yeah, because I was like, what is going on? Why is my body not doing what I want it to do? Yes,
Mhm.
it just took, it works, but it takes more time. And
Yeah.
yeah, and also to acknowledge that. And sometimes I still say to my husband, I'm sorry, it's taking a long time. And not as in like I'm not really apologizing, but it's just an acknowledgement of like, listen, it's taking longer than I want to. And that's my reality at the moment. And that's it.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that.
yeah, and yeah,
One of the beautiful ways I have found to learn how to listen to your body, whether you're ready to be penetrated or other decisions, let's be honest there, is the jade egg. The jade egg has been really powerful for me. I've been playing with the jade egg since 2018, I think. And in the beginning, just the thought of the jade egg turned me on. But then eventually it was like, no, am I listening? Am I listening to my yes? Am I listening to my no? And I love playing with the jade egg. I can lead clients also through jade egg, but I actually generally give all my private clients my free, or it's not free, but I give it to them for free, my jade egg course on my website. So there's a jade egg course on my website that anybody can buy and go along and do it themselves, but my private clients get it for free. Does that make sense?
beautiful.
Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, and it's a beautiful, the jade egg is really amazing tool that you get to do privately in your own home. You don't even need to put the egg inside. You're able to learn that through the videos. There's different ways to learn to actually listen to your body, what she wants. It's very nourishing. It includes breast massage and how to do it in the Taoist tradition, and really, really learning how to learn to love and listen to your body. That's a powerful practice. So if anybody wants that
Really.
right now without actually talking to Rosa or I, you can go ahead and check out my website, which is getyoursexyback.ca, right? And you can, CA for Canada. And you can grab that program. It's a pretty epic program to just learn. And you were also mentioning lube in there, which is another thing that we think we need lube all of a sudden later in life, when actually, side note, you should always be using lube because there's microabrasions and there's tears and there's little things that we don't notice. And that can be, even the next day or later that night, you're like, oh, I'm a little sore down there. It's because we didn't use lube. And there's actually oh, I have the top sex tools. I'll get my VA, amazing VA Isabella, to add the link into the show notes of the top sex tools of explaining lube. There's also a podcast reference in there because not all lubes are the same level. You actually want the right
No,
pH.
100%. And also you want it to last, because some are
Yes.
gone just like that. And I think then it's not very helpful. And also use lube a lot. Like I personally think that oftentimes we start using lube way too late. Like when you
Yeah.
start playing, you can use lube and it's much more pleasurable, especially if you're not wet that quick anymore. Use
Yes.
lube. Like
Yes. I make my own
who
body
likes
butter.
playing?
Yes.
Exactly. Like who likes playing when there's no juice, nothing, it's not pleasant.
Nothing.
So use lube.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's really, and interestingly enough, also for men, I think a lot of men love it when you use lube when you stroke them. Because again, for them as well,
Yes.
like it's more pleasurable.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to make and share my body butter recipe in the meantime, because I make my own body butter that we use as lube, which can be totally edible and you can use, and it's very nourishing actually. So I don't know how quickly I can make a link, but we will put it on down below. And if the link is not in the show notes for Kim's body butter, um, message me and I'll share it with you on Instagram or Facebook, okay? Because this is really important, and it's really easy. Like, it takes me 5 minutes of putting the ingredients in the pot that melt it, and then it sits in the fridge for an hour or so, and then it's ready in, like, a few seconds, and, yeah, I just put it in jars or tins that I get off Amazon or leftover containers of glass or whatever. Little, like, mason jars, the short little mason jars are great little containers. But having your own, organic, uh, pH balanced body butter that feels good on your back, your breasts, and pussy, and during sex is so, so powerful and needed. So that one's really, really key. Yeah.
Brilliant.
What
Yeah.
were
So
what were we talking about that brought us into there? I don't remember now.
uh, I think we're talking about the dryness maybe and the um
Yeah.
I don't remember either. I think
We
maybe
both
like
have
to
menopause brain.
yeah.
And that is a
Exactly,
thing.
exactly. Yeah,
And that's another great point, actually. So one of the other things that perimenopause or menopause has taught me is I need way more sleep than I thought I needed.
same
And
here.
actually looking back, I think I always needed this much sleep. I just didn't take it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, and also I need way more structure and organization because otherwise I
Mhm,
forget things. And again, I
mhm,
think that was always the way, but I think I got away with it. But in a way, I noticed that I really like if I don't write my all my appointments down, I
mhm.
might forget.
Oh, they're gone.
And
Yeah.
yes,
And I've noticed that
like
for
oopsie.
about probably 15 years. Yeah, I have to put everything in my calendar. Eventually, I'll teach this course. I have an amazing system of organization. I'm an organization queen, probably to help my brain. How to, do bookkeeping and how to keep all your receipts in one place so that you're ready for it all come bookkeeping. Like, this goes for my own personal taxes, for my business taxes, for everything. And I've shown it to a few people who are bookkeepers, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're my dream client." So even they don't use this system. So I'm going to put a little course together later in the year and show people how to do this, because especially for our fellow sex love relationship coaches, because right, it's not our superpower, and it ends up
Nope.
really being disorganized in the end, and it could be so much easier. So um, yeah, the brain thing is a thing, that's for sure. So, and that's just going to happen. And again, we need more sleep. We need more downtime. We need more grounding. We need more nourishment. And we need some organization for when we come back to do a little bit of work, kind of thing. We need to slow down. That one's big. I can't do more than 2 appointments, 2.5 appointments in a day. Like, if I'm
Same.
recording, I 2 is my max for a recording, because it's just too much for my system. And if we're really gonna be honest, if we looked back to our early 30s while we were pushing it like crazy Energizer bunnies, it wasn't serving us then either.
No.
We've learned with technology how to do more and more and more, way more than we ever should be doing in a day or a week. And
Yeah,
that is hurting us as a society and creating burnout and stress, which is also creating lower libido and issues in the bedroom, and women not feeling satisfied and happy and thinking there's something wrong with them.
exactly. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with us. Nothing.
No.
No, not at
No.
all. What else is there anything else you'd like to share in there before we head off? Is there anything else you really want people to hear?
No, I think I want people I think I more than anything I like women to hear what you just said, that there's nothing wrong with you. You can have great sex. It's really possible, but you will have to listen to your body. It might be different than it was, but it's not worse than it was. You know, you
Oh,
might need
mine's
a bit
way
more
better.
time. Same for me. My experiences also. But it's interesting because there is such a strong narrative. So whenever I tell my friends, sometimes they say, yeah, that's easy for you to say. And I'm like, why? Why exactly? Like as if I'm saying something that's completely crazy and out of this reality. And they just say, yeah, it's easy for you to say. For example, then I get the argument because your husband is willing to take time. I'm like, well, you know what? You should really explain to your husband like how it works for all women. It's not just you. It's not because you're a Moni Mini. It's all women need time much more than men, and that's the reality.
Mm.
So yeah,
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for calling them in to relook at their programming in their head of, well, that's, that's easy for you to say. You're a sex coach and your
Yeah,
husband's willing. No, everyone is. And my current partner, we've been together a little over a year and a half. He's like, why don't men know this?
100%.
Why don't he goes, "All my life, like, I just thought it was like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am." Like, they are not taught, so it's nothing against the men here. They're literally not taught that this is how our body works as a female or a male body, and they have their own hiccups in their head as well, that we get to learn together in a beautiful connected relationship how to support each other in the bedroom and out. But again, if we're not talking about in the bedroom, or if we're turning off the lights and quickly getting it done, like, there's no communication. We need to open the lines of communication. We need to understand each other. We need to be vulnerable. We need to share. All of
Yeah.
these things are really important. Hence our relationship work that we do as well, right? It's
Yeah.
powerful.
Really
And
powerful.
every every female, every male, everybody out there, every gender deserves to have an epic sex life and feel good in their body, even if they're single or in a relationship, like feel good, feel connected, feel alive, feel juicy, feel free, feel turned on. And it is possible for everyone. It just will take some work because this is our work.
Yes, exactly. No, it's beautiful. And it's beautiful also when it happens, eh? I had this woman recently that had her first orgasm in her 60s.
Oh, I
And I was
love
like,
it.
okay, I was so happy for her. She came in and she was like, yes. I was like, I was so
Yes.
happy for her. No, it's beautiful. But again, it is I think she almost like missed her orgasm be all the years before because she was never connected enough to her body and to her pleasure. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So it
quite
is possible
incredible.
if you've never had an orgasm, if you can have one once in a while, if you have a few, but again, there's different degrees of orgasm too that I'm going to speak to before we go, where, we've got the peak valley where you literally go up and down. And the peak, we have been taught the peak orgasm is the peak pleasure. And that is not exactly true. What can happen when you learn to come into your body and feel your pleasure in every sensation is we start to have multiple peaks and valleys. And sometimes these peaks go up and stay up for like minutes. Those ones are really fun. But there's like they ebb and flow and the pleasure builds and then comes back down to a still another high level of pleasure versus a peak up and I'm done. And this can also happen for men. Men can learn how to hold their pleasure and not ejaculate and still have orgasm without ejaculation, which is a beautiful tool also to learn because then they can also extend their pleasure sessions. And it's a
Yeah.
beautiful way to connect.
Yeah, it really is. Also, full body orgasm for men.
Oh,
I
oh
think
yes.
for most men, they're like, of course, my pleasure's in my genitals. I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be. You know,
Thank you
uh,
for naming that because none of my orgasms are genital orgasms anymore. They're all full body orgasms, every single one. If I take a nice deep breath right here, I could have one right now. Like it doesn't take long. All I have to do is a nice full body breath, and body just has a full body energetic orgasm these days, which is beautiful and delicious. And that's what feeds
yeah,
me and gives me the energy to have this beautiful, turned on life. And when it's not beautiful, like let's be honest, the last 2 years have not been easy for me through divorce and a whole pile of, legal shit, which I know you're familiar with, as and being an ex-lawyer, retired lawyer. And yeah, it was hard. And my turn on and my pleasure is what carried me through, and my nervous system regulation carried me through. It was the hardest year and a half of my life, and it was the best. It was both and which is really brilliant. And that is why also, sure, you could be listening and going, yeah, but you don't have my life. It's like this and hard and da da da. Oh, yeah, I have many hard things going on. And yet I can still come home in my body and learn how to trust and feel safe and make decisions that are grounded and aligned and live a very turned on, amazing life.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true. It's so true. Yeah, and I'm so happy for you that you found this. That you found this way of connecting to yourself and being because I can see you feel like you're beaming off the screen. So yeah,
Oh, thank
beautiful.
you.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, and I love directly how closely, I guess you're a corporate lawyer, but I know you saw some other divorce lawyers and family
yeah,
lawyers and
yeah.
how much they went through. And yeah, it's not easy, but we can have both because it all just starts with coming back to our body.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love the journey that you're on and that you're able to help your clients, especially with um, the medical menopause, right? That is a big thing. And even though I love that you're in Amsterdam, I'm in Canada, and we're on the opposite sides of the world almost. And we get to work with women, with couples, and help them actually learn how to take care of themselves in a way that we've never been taught.
Yeah. No, 100% true. Thank you.
Mhm. Before we sign off, please tell people, Rosa, what you have going on right now. How can they work with you? We're also going to drop links in the show notes, but what do you have going on and how can people work with you?
Well, I am gonna start a qigong class, a weekly qigong class.
Ooh,
It's been going like I've been planning to do it forever, but for some reason there was always reason. So I have this tiny little website called Aliveness Amsterdam, and I'm gonna do like my more energy work there. And I work with couples and women, um, yeah, around anything embodiment or sexuality. I'm also somatic experiencing, so I work with sexual trauma. I am imago trained, so I also like if people are looking for almost like more classical couples therapy, but this will always be at the end of the day, the body is the centerpiece of everything I do. The body, pleasure,
totally.
and also I have quite some clients that either like struggle with a sickness or one of the partners is sick or a chronic illness or and
Hmm.
obviously it's very easy for me to relate. It has also been my struggle. Most of my clients have been in a relationship for quite a long time. And again, that puzzlement of can you really be happy with somebody after 20 years? Yes, you fucking can, and really
Yay.
happy, really
Yes.
happy. Um, and it's not easy. I sometimes give this example of my daughter, really brief, but I thought it was so brilliant in a way. She had her best friend's parents got divorced recently, and she said, I'm so surprised. She said, my daughter is 14. I'm so surprised because I really thought that they were such a good match. And I asked her,
Mm,
so do you think me and Papa, your father, are a good match? And she said, well, I think you really work very hard on your relationship. And I thought, wow,
mm.
that is such a brilliant answer because that's exactly what it is. We're
Yeah.
not a good match. We just choose each other over and over again. And we choose to
Yes.
be in this relationship over and over again. And we work. Like it's hard work to be in a 20-year relationship, but it's so fun. I love him so much.
It is.
Yeah, he's such a fun guy. Like, I
Yay.
would,
I'm
yeah,
celebrating
yeah,
you.
yeah.
That is
So,
so amazing. And yeah, I'm going to concur. Like I was in a 24-year marriage, right? 26 years together. And, even in the current relationship that I am in with amazing King, it takes work. It takes work. That is what makes a powerful relationship. You have to choose vulnerability. You have to choose connection. You have to choose to be honest. You have to choose to speak your truth, ask for what you need. And oh my gosh, it's out of this world when you can reach that level of safety and be seen in a relationship where you are loved and accepted for exactly who you are because you have already found your true authentic self through body, right? It is very,
yes.
very powerful. And I believe, and I think everybody is capable of this and wants this, even if they don't admit it right away. But it is in there. They want this. And that is, my life's mission to work with women and men and couples to really come into that safety. And then deeper than that, come into this relationship where they can show up and be seen and be met and with their full entity of who they are. And we'll drop the links in the show notes as well because we just got our new house last week, but our new house is up northern Ontario in cottage country on a lake, and it's almost 5 acres, and it's beautiful, and we are creating a retreat center for couples, for 4 to 5 couples at a time to come up to do work to, reclaim their relationship themselves, work on communication, connection, sexuality, and really build the most epic, powerful relationships where they both feel seen and heard and loved and supported. And we can't wait. We're so excited. So the link will be in there.
Uh,
It's Phoenix Rising Retreats. It's just getting on the wait list for the emails right now because emails are not going out, but then you'll be the first to know when it's ready. So Yeah,
brilliant. Sounds
I
so
know.
so yum. Yeah.
I'm so excited because this is what we need, right? You're doing it in the other side of the world. I'm doing it here. There's many of us, really trying to help people be who they are and feel really, really satisfied and loved in themselves and in their relationship so that they can go out and do the things in the world that they're meant to do.
Yeah.
So
No. Yeah. It's beautiful.
I
Really
love it.
beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been so lovely recording with you. Thank you so much, Rosa. We're going to drop all the links in the show notes. And do you also work with private clients, Rosa? You do one-on-one work, right?
Yeah, yeah. I do one-on-one with women. So
With
I
women.
work
Okay,
with, yeah, with women. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you also want to hop on a call, I'm guessing you offer free complimentary calls to decide if
I
that
do.
works for them.
Yeah, they can book it on my website. So
Perfect.
rosakelly.com. Yeah.
Perfect. And the same with me. You can book a consultation. The links will be in the show notes as well or off website. Just to see, hey, I'm feeling like this, and this, and I want to know what you suggest is the best for me. I'm happy to hop on a call and go over that. So the links will be in the show notes that you can book a call and we'll go from there. But yay, it's been a joy to record with you. Thank you again.
It was so much to be here. So great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Till next time, everyone.